Inside of Visual Studio, I have a time card class defined. A time card consists of ID, username, the number of hours worked, a start date, and an end date. I also have a home controller set up so that if the user goes to /home/create, we'll display a form that allows them to enter new time card information and then post that back to a create action that accepts a post with the new time card information. Inside of here, we'll make sure that the time card is valid, that it passes all the validation rules, and if so, we'll add it to a time cards collection and then redirect back to a list of all the time cards. Otherwise, if there is a validation error, we're going to redisplay the create view and allow the user to fix any problems. Currently, there are no validation rules in place, which means if I run this application, the user can come into /home/create and create a time card with 0 hours and no username. That's not exactly what we want, so let's start adding some data annotations. Data annotations live in the system.componentModel.dataAnnotations namespace, and you've probably used some of these before. Like, I can use the required attribute to mark the username as required. I could also say that it has a maximum length of 25. If I wanted to, I could add a regular expression here. Then the value of that username property must match that regular expression for the object to be valid, but we'll leave that one off for right now. There is a range attribute, so I can say that the hours should be between 1 and 120. And if I run the application just with these 3 attributes in place, and I try to create a new time card without entering any information, you'll see that these validation rules start exercising themselves. The username field is required, and hours must be between 1 and 120. All those messages can be customized by passing different parameters into the annotations themselves. So for example, for required, I could pass in here my own error message string or point the attribute to a resource type and resource name so that it pulls an error resource message out and you can localize these error messages. There are also 2 new attributes introduced with MVC 3 and .NET 4. One of those new attributes is the compare attribute. Let's say that I wanted the user to enter the number of hours that they worked twice. Once to give us the number of hours and a second time just to make sure that they really meant that they worked that number of hours. I can add a compare attribute to say match these confirm hours with this value and this property and make sure that they both match. And in order for this to work, I'm going to have to come into our view and allow the user to enter those confirm hours. So let's take this set of divs that's displaying a label and an editor and validation messages for hours and place it here, and we'll change this to confirm hours. By the way, another new feature that was introduced into MVC3 is the ability to pass a piece of text into the label for helper to display. So we can say, please confirm the number of hours you worked. And now we also just have to change this to confirm hours and confirm hours. Let's run with our changes in place. And I'm going to come to create new, enter in a username, some hours, some other hours, and click create. You can see confirm hours and hours do not match. So let's try 120. So we see the compare attribute works. What's interesting if you're thinking about how the compare attribute would be implemented is that if you've ever implemented a custom attribute in MVC2 or MVC1 for validation, then you've probably run across the scenario where implementing values across properties was difficult. Validation was really about validating the single value of a single property. There's been a few changes in MVC3 that make this type of scenario easier.